Marry him before that other girl does, the Dowager Duchess of Thackmoor whispered over the teacups, her voice pitched for one pair of ears and her eyes fixed innocently on the rim of her porcelain cup. And you may have him for life. Wait, and Miss Caro will have him by Michaelmas, and then we shall all be very sorry. Marcus, the Duke of Thackmoor, standing in the doorway of his mother's drawing-room with his gloves half off, heard every word, and very nearly turned around and went back out again. It was not that he begrudged his mother her schemes. He had long since accepted that scheming was, for the Dowager Duchess, what embroidery was for other ladies of her age, a thing done with the hands while the mind ran on, harmless enough until one discovered one's name worked into the pattern. It was that he was 36 years old, weary to the bone of being a quarry, and he had hoped, in coming home for the summer, to pass 3 months without being hunted across his own teacups. He had counted some 11 mothers that season. He had been seated beside their daughters at dinner, partnered with them at cards, walked round gardens with them, and made to admire the same roses 30 times over. He had grown adept at the slow, courteous retreat. And he had assumed, crossing the threshold of his mother's morning room, that he was about to be subjected to the 11th. Then he saw to whom she was whispering and stopped. The young woman seated across the tea table from his mother was not Miss Caro, who was a beauty and knew it, nor any of the bright, assured creatures who had been steered into his path all season. She was a quiet thing in a sprigged muslin gown that had been good 2 summers ago, her hair softly done with a few curls escaping at the temple, and she was not looking at him at all. She had not heard him come in. She was looking at his mother with an expression of such frank, suppressed horror at what she had just overheard that Marcus felt, for the first time in months, something other than wariness. He felt amused. "Your Grace," the young woman was saying, low and urgent, "you must not. I beg you will not. I should sooner walk back to the village than have a man, have anyone, be marched at me like a regiment. It is not to be borne. It is not kind to him even, whoever he is." "Whoever he is," repeated the Dowager Duchess, with vast satisfaction, and lifted her cup. "Whoever he is," the young woman insisted. "I am very fond of you, ma'am, and I am grateful past speaking for your kindness to me, but I will not be made into a snare for some poor gentleman who never asked for one. I haven't the face for it, nor the fortune, nor the stomach. Pray let us speak of something else, anything else, the weather, your roses." Marcus took one quiet step into the room. "My mother's roses," he said, "are the only subject in this house more dangerous than my marriage. I should choose the weather, if I were you." The young woman went white, then scarlet, and rose from her chair so quickly she rattled the whole tea service, porcelain ringing against porcelain. Her fan slid off her lap and clattered to the floor, and neither of them moved to retrieve it. She stared at him with the particular fixed dread of a person who has just understood that the one man in England she least wished to overhear her has overheard everything. "Your Grace," she managed, "I did not. I had no notion you were—" "I gathered as much," he said. "Do sit down, Miss Lissel," said his mother smoothly, settling back into her chair like a general who has won a skirmish without raising her voice. "Miss Catherine Lissel, the daughter of my dearest friend, gone these 2 years, God rest her. Catherine keeps me from dying of dullness, Marcus, which is more than you do. Sit, both of you. The tea is going cold, and there is no crisis on earth that cold tea improves." Marcus retrieved the fallen fan himself before Miss Liesel could reach it, and held it out to her. She took it without looking at him, her colour still high, and he found that he did not at all wish her to stop being embarrassed, because embarrassment had brought a life into her face that the assured beauties of the season never showed. They had all learned, long ago, to keep their faces smooth as porcelain. This one had not. Every feeling she had crossed her plainly, like weather across a field. "You overheard my mother proposing to marry me off," he said, sitting, before some rival could do the office. You were appalled. You declared you would sooner walk back to the village than be a snare. Have I the whole of it? You have rather more of it than I should like, your grace. She lifted her chin a little. It was, he thought, a creditable recovery. I will only add, in my defence, that I did not know the gentleman in question was you, and that it makes no difference at all to my opinion. No one ought to be hunted, not even a duke. Especially not a duke, perhaps, for I imagine it never stops. Something in his chest went still and attentive. It never stops, he agreed. There. She spread her hands as though she had proven a point in a debate. So you see, I am quite the wrong person for your mother's scheme, because I should spend the whole of any courtship apologizing to you for being part of it. That, said Marcus, is the most novel argument against marrying a woman that I have ever heard a woman make. The Dowager Duchess sipped her tea and said nothing at all, which from his mother was the loudest possible thing she could have done. He stayed for tea. He had not meant to. He had meant to deliver his apologies for the season's neglect, escape the 11th daughter, and ride out to look at the south meadow before the light went. Instead, he sat in the warm drawing-room while the candles were brought in against the dusk, and listened to Catherine Liesel talk, once she had recovered enough to talk, and found her to be quick and dry and unguarded in a way he had forgotten people could be. She did not angle. She did not laugh too readily at his observations. Once, when he made a remark he had used a dozen times that seasoned to general admiration, she only looked at him and said, "You've said that before, I think." It has the polish of a thing said before, and his mother choked very gently on her tea, and Marcus laughed aloud for the first time in longer than he could remember. When Miss Liesel had gone, she lodged in the village, it transpired, in 2 modest rooms, on the small income her late mother had left her. He stood at the window and watched her walk away down the drive in the blue evening, refusing the carriage his mother had offered, her bonnet bent against the breeze. She refused the carriage, he observed. She refuses everything, said the Dowager Duchess comfortably from her chair. Carriages, gowns, the loan of my own maid. She will not be in anyone's debt. It is the most maddening quality in the world, and I love her for it. She set down her cup. I did not invent her for your benefit, Marcus. Whatever you are thinking, she has no idea she is handsome and would be insulted to be told so. I asked her here because she is good company and I am old. The marrying was a passing thought, a pause, the faintest tinkle of porcelain, brought on by Miss Caro's mother telling me at the Aldous ball that she expected to call herself your mother-in-law by the autumn. And does she? Said Marcus dryly. She does, loudly, to anyone who will stand still. His mother folded her hands. I do not care 2 pins whom you marry, my dear, so long as it is not Honoria Caro, who would have this house cold and correct within a 12-month and you with it, but I will not push. You have been pushed all season and you are sick of it, and the surest way to lose a thing is to grab at it. She rose, kissed his cheek, and added, with the timing of a woman who has spent 50 years learning exactly when to leave a room, I only ask that you not be too proud to notice when something good is walking away from you down your own drive. Good night, Marcus. He stood a long while at the window after she had gone, watching the empty road. The house party was his mother's idea, and Marcus permitted it, because permitting his mother her parties was easier than refusing them, and because, though he did not say so, Miss Liesel would be among the guests, a fortnight of it. The great families came down from town, Honoria Caro among them, lovely and assured and quite certain of her welcome, and Marcus did the duty of a host with half his attention, while the other half searched the rooms for a sprigged muslin gown and a face that showed its weather. He found her on the 2nd evening on the terrace, alone, looking at the dark gardens while the music and chatter spilled out behind her through the lit windows. You have escaped, he said. I have been escaping for an hour, she admitted. Miss Caro asked me to fetch her shawl, and then her fan, and then to find her mother, and I came out here instead, and I am not going back in. I am a poor guest, your grace. You should not have invited me. My mother invited you. I merely failed to prevent it. He came and stood beside her at the balustrade. Below them the gardens were full of the smell of stocks and the small sounds of a summer night. Miss Caro, he said, after a moment, would not have come out here. She would have sent someone for a shawl rather than walk a yard in the dark. Miss Caro is very elegant. Miss Caro is very tiresome, said Marcus, and I have been trying for a fortnight to find a way to tell my mother that her scheme has succeeded against all my intentions, and I cannot find the words, because the words make me sound like exactly the sort of man who marches a regiment at a woman, and you told me at the tea table that no one ought to be hunted, and I should hate above all things for you to feel hunted by me. Catherine Lissel went very still beside him. Your Grace, she said carefully, I think you had better say plainly what you mean, because I have been schooling myself for a fortnight to imagine you mean anything at all, and it has been a great deal of work, and I should not like it to have been wasted. He turned to face her in the light that fell from the windows. I mean, he said, that I have been hunted all my life, and I have never once, until a quiet woman dropped her fan in my mother's drawing room and told me I had no business being snared, wished to stop running and be caught. I am not asking you because my mother schemed it. I am asking you because you are the only person in 3 months who looked at me and saw a man who might be tired, rather than a title that might be had. Marry me, Catherine. Not before Miss Caro does. She may have whom she likes. Marry me because I should like very much to spend the rest of my life with the one person who would have walked back to the village rather than make a snare of herself, and who has, by doing precisely that, become the only snare I ever walked into gladly. She made a small sound, half a laugh and half something else, and pressed her fingers to her lips. Your mother, she said unsteadily, will be insufferable. My mother will be insufferable for years, he agreed. She has earned it. Will you? I refuse carriages, she warned him, and gowns, and the loan of maids. I shall be the most difficult duchess in England. I shall apologize to you constantly for having been schemed at you. I am counting on it, said Marcus, and took her hand, and found it was trembling, and that his own was not quite steady either. I have had enough of women who never apologize for anything. Say yes, Catherine, before I lose my nerve, which I have not done since I was 19 and am finding a most uncomfortable sensation. Yes, she said. Yes, of course, yes, you maddening man. I have been saying it inside my head for a fortnight. Behind them, through the long-lit windows, the Dowager Duchess of Thackmoor sat at the card table with her back to the terrace and her hand of cards held high, and if she happened to be smiling into them like a woman who has just taken the whole rubber, no one at the table thought to wonder why. Marcus did not march her in to make any announcement that night. He kept her on the dark terrace a while longer, the two of them, away from the bright assured crowd, and he raised her trembling hand and held it against his chest where she could feel he was not steady as he looked, and he said low, the thing he most wanted her to keep, I shall spend my life making certain you never once feel you were caught, my heart. Only chosen, you walked away down my drive that first evening, and I have been walking after you ever since, and I mean to go on doing it until I am an old man, following you, gladly, the rest of my days. And Catherine Lissel, who had refused everything she had ever been offered for fear of owing too much, found at last one thing she could not bring herself to refuse, and did not try.